Greetings, Helldivers, and welcome back to R.A.S.H Tactics. We are here today for episode 10, and in this episode we are doing something a little bit special, which is a brand new mission that was only released to us a couple of days ago. So, on the 29th of April, we had a pretty significant patch release, which was centered around some rebalancing of weapons and support items. They also did some bug fixing, and with this patch we also had a new major order released to us all, which is centered around the Terminid control system. So the Terminid control system is basically, there are 4 planets on the Terminid side of the galaxy, which are known as the barrier planets. If we hold those 4 planets, we can basically ensure that the Terminids cannot advance past that point and get anywhere close to Super Earth. And a few weeks back, we were given a different major order to activate this new Terminid control system, which are basically these giant towers that spray out this termicide that Super Earth scientists are calling it, which was supposed to completely eradicate the Terminid presence and stop them from being able to get back onto those planets. Well, now we have a new major order in which we have to go back to those planets and deactivate the Terminid control system, because the termicide is actually having the opposite effect. It is mutating the Terminids in small ways. It's probably one of the reasons why we saw the Shrieker nests appear very shortly after activating the system. And it's also caused the Terminids to have some pretty explosive reproductive capabilities. One thing you may have noticed if you've done any missions on these 4 planets since the 29th of April is that bug attacks have been triple, if not quadruple, in size whenever they happen. So yeah, we have to go back to these planets and deactivate this system, and in today's episode that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at one of these new missions. Now, I'm not exactly sure how long we're going to have access to this mission. It will probably only be available for this major order, the same way that activating the system was available during the previous major order. We haven't seen that mission since, so we might not see this one again unless they decide to revisit it in the future, just to keep that in mind. Okay, for this mission, you'll notice that I am doing this one on medium difficulty. This was probably the 3rd or the 4th time I've done this mission since it came out. I wanted to run it a few times with just groups of randoms, just so I could have a look at the mission itself and understand what it is that we're there to do and the different objectives. It's pretty straightforward. You'll also notice in the top right corner next to the difficulty icon is the mission timer. We only have about 12 minutes to do this mission. It's one of those missions where we're only supposed to be there for a short period of time to do a quick objective and then bug out as quick as possible. So it's not one of those missions where we're going to be traversing across the map for 40 minutes. All we have to do is stay in this area and complete these objectives. Just underneath the mission timer, you'll notice our 2 separate objectives. The first one is to destroy 17 mutated Terminid eggs. The number of eggs you'll need to destroy will change depending on the difficulty. We also need to deactivate the termicide tower by deactivating the corrupted battery silos, which there are 3 of them. If any of you actually ran the activation of the Terminid control system missions when they first were available, you remember that we had 3 separate batteries we had to defend to activate before starting the system itself, so we're basically back here to turn those 3 silos off. And there are a couple of things I would recommend paying attention to whilst you're down on the surface for this mission. First of all, there will be roaming bands of bugs in the area, and this area is essentially a giant mutated bug nest, so there will be bug holes as well that are constantly spewing out bugs. So just make sure you're taking those out as soon as you see them. You'll also have noticed at the start of this mission we landed right next to a spore spewer. Now, this isn't a sub-objective you can take out for bonus XP and requisition, but I would still recommend taking it out as soon as you see it, as it will be constantly spewing out spores and decreasing your vision in the area, so just take it out as soon as you see it. One thing to be aware of with this spore spewer is that it's armoured, so standard bullets will just bounce off the surface. You will need to use something quite explosive to take it down. I used an Eagle airstrike and it took it down in 1 hit, so it's not too difficult. It's just that standard weapons won't take it down like they used to. Another thing to be aware of is that every time you deactivate one of the battery silos, you will spawn a bug breach, and you will get attacked by a very large amount of Terminids. As I said at the start of the video, the Super Earth scientists have said that the mutations for the Terminids with this termicide is that they have an increased amount of reproductive capability. So the bug attacks are spawning with a lot more numbers than we're used to. So just make sure you've got something on hand, so a couple of stratagems or something that's pretty decent at wave clear. Even though I'm on medium difficulty, I'm having to rely on the stalwart machine gun quite a lot in these attacks, as it's pretty good at taking out high numbers of smaller bugs. So yeah, just make sure you've got something on hand that will help you clear out these waves, and that you're sticking together as a group, especially on the higher difficulties, as I imagine there'll be quite a lot of big nasties coming at you during those breaches. And finally, when you're looking out for the corrupted eggs or the mutated nests, the eggs, they are a lot bigger than the standard eggs that you will have seen on previous egg hunt missions. So on previous egg hunt missions, you'll have probably had to take out quite a high number, something like 61 or 35, and they're all quite small and clustered together. Well, these eggs are quite large. You'll notice there is one big fat one, and then it's usually surrounded by about 5 or 6 of the smaller eggs. All you have to do is shoot the big fat one and all of them will blow up, but it only counts as one mutated egg. So just make sure you're keeping your eye open for those as you're going around. Now, the mission will tell you to kill a certain amount of them or destroy a certain amount of them, but there are more than that on the mission. I noticed at least 20 on this one, but obviously I killed a couple more after taking out the 17 I needed for the mission. So I imagine that the game gives you extra just in case, because some of them can be tucked away and hidden in little corners. So, yep, you don't have to do anything special with these. Even just shooting them with a basic weapon is good enough, although if you see a few of them clustered together, it might be worth using an explosive stratagem to take them down rather than wasting a full magazine, but that obviously is your choice. Finally, the last thing I can tell you about this mission is that as soon as you've completed the 2 main objectives, so as soon as you've turned off that last battery silo or destroyed that last egg, the Pelican dropship will show up pretty much instantly. It will be there a few seconds after the main objectives are completed, but instead of landing and then starting the 20-second countdown for you to get on board, what it will do instead is hover above the extraction point and shoot at the bugs with its autocannon, which is a mechanic the Pelican has had for pretty much the entirety of the time the game's been out. It's just not a mechanic that you can easily make use of in standard missions. Once you've gotten close enough to the extraction point, the Pelican will then land and allow you to get on board, but in other missions it's difficult to make use of, because when you call in the extraction, you are stood at the extraction point, and if you walk too far away from the extraction point before the timer runs out, the extraction will cancel and you'll have to start it again. Whereas if you leave the point too late, the Pelican will just land anyway. You kind of have to time it to the point where the timer has run out and the Pelican's on its way down, and if you leave, it will then leave, but before it starts landing, it will just hover above the point and shoot at nearby enemies with its autocannon, which is the same thing it does in this mission. It's just, again, it's a difficult thing to time, and it's, to be honest, it's not that useful unless you're being swarmed by a lot of bugs and you're going to struggle to get to the dropship itself, as killing bugs isn't something that's going to give you a lot more requisition or experience. It's more just clearing out the waves so that you can get to the dropship itself. So you could try and make use of this mechanic on other missions as well, but I don't really see a huge amount of use to it. It's more just, you know, make sure you're clearing out the extraction point and then you can get out of there. But on this mission, it does showcase that mechanic where it's just kind of hovering above the extraction point and shooting at things. So if you are being attacked by a lot of bugs in quite a small area, it will assist you in taking them out. But one thing to be aware of with that is that the autocannon rounds can do damage to you as well. So I would definitely try and put some distance between yourself and the bugs so that you're not being shot at accidentally. It has happened to me a couple of times, so yeah, just be aware that a stray autocannon shell could smack you in the face if you're being chased by a lot of them. But yeah, that's pretty much everything for this mission. It's quite simple and straightforward. It's also quite hectic on the higher difficulties. I have run one of them on extreme difficulty and it was pretty mad. I am looking forward to doing this one on Helldive difficulty if I can get there before this mission or this major order is complete. But that is everything for this episode. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.